everybody. This is the second session for the State Liquor Authority. We are super happy to have Chair Lily Fan here and her team. Some of you heard me say this before, and I've been saying it every time, and I always say it every time because I genuinely mean it. We are so lucky to have State Liquor Authority that we have. The fact that they'll pick up the phone when I call, you can call me with an issue, and it can be a serious issue, but they're there to help, not to go out and get you in any way. And so, and to be able to do 2 sessions here every year to answer your questions, so please get your questions ready because they're ready for them. The first session I thought was really enlightening because people brought up things that really they had questions about, so now they're going to look into it. So they're here just to make the whole process better and easier and everything. So thank you for being here. And with that, I would like to introduce the chair, Lily Fan.
Hi everybody, so I'm Lily. I've been a part-time commissioner at the agency since 2018 and became chair in June of 23. Very fortunate when I went from part-time to full-time that I have a really great crew that had already been there for close to 2 decades that knew everything there is to know about alcohol law. So we have Paul Cromino, who is our wholesale and legislative affairs guru. We have Bill Crawley, who recently we changed his title from chief of staff to executive deputy commissioner, which is as important as it sounds. It basically means that he's like the main person running the agency, so all things go to him, all the problems he created, all the solutions I brought. Then there's Shannon Kearney-Sarfel, who started as our general counsel at the agency just about half a year before I became chair, and so now I'm proud to say that 2 women basically run this train, and it runs on time because of that. James Martin is a veteran in our licensing bureau. Many of you know him, and he's our manufacturing and wholesale expert, and that's why he's here. And Patrick Garrett is our youngin who handles press and all our chamber affairs, and we're lucky to have him. And so the team is different. If you've been here before, we used to be 3 men in a room and make all the decisions, and everybody else kind of find out what is happening in the agency. But the truth is that we are agency, of 9 bureaus, and there are actually a lot of different moving parts and a lot of different pieces that kind of work together to uphold the alcohol law. And I find it most rewarding when we're in a round table and trying to address issues together as a team. So when it's a licensing issue, you may think that it's a licensing issue, but really enforcement needs to be part of it. For example, our conversation about outdoor dining, not necessarily applicable here, but that team with the brains that come together, it's 9 to 10 people every time we have a meeting, because it will have our local city experts, and then our executive team, the policy team, enforcement team, and also licensing team. And so we tend to work together that way, and I find it rewarding for both me and the staff that we're all sharing and holding each other accountable in decisions. So we also, come up with a game plan, like I am responsible for going to fight for things, but we together come up with what is best. If we need more staff, if we need more money, if we need budget language change, we need policy change, it's really important that everybody sit together and talk about it. So I was here last year at the same time, and we at that time had reported some budget wins in last year's budget. For you, most relevant is that we got the manufacturing temporary permit approved. So for $125, if you have your game plan ready, you have your business ready, you can get a temporary manufacturing permit after like 7 to 10 days of applying. So that's like pretty fast to starting your production line. That's probably at this point like the fastest thing that will come. It's probably much longer to like buy your equipment and you know come up with a formula and whatnot. But the license is actually very straightforward and easy. The state now, because of how easy it is, has more than 600 breweries that are operating, and we're really proud of the growth in this industry since the creation of this law, which I think Bill was part of when they did all the farm licenses and stuff like that, so he knows all about that. Since I started, we've also spent a lot of time fixing ourselves internally. We've done a lot of staffing. When I started, we still have a lot of empty holes in the FTEs because, since pandemic, the agency actually got money to hire more people. It was actually really hard to hire more people, as you remember, during the pandemic and after pandemic, and our agency was a revolving door. But we spent the last 18 months doing really well with filling our staffing capacities, doing really well with retaining people, and people are less likely to leave now, I'm proud to say, because we're just such a better working environment. But really, when you involve people and they really are like invested in it, that they're not just like being instructed how to do, I think it does keep people interested in their jobs. 50% of our staff have received a promotion, which I think it is in a way shocking, but it also tells you how much things were, I think how the staff was kind of starved and not really given the proper attention and the proper encouragement, and we were able to build a promotional ladder for a lot of licensed staff, for example, and also for our executive team. A lot of people just got moved into positions of relevance after having really spent many years learning this stuff. We have done a lot of work on the backlog. As you know, we have a famous backlog, which is pretty enormous. When I started, it was probably 6,000 plus applications. And the backlog committee itself has gone through about 4,000 applications. And now we're so good and so fast that 10% of the people that get approvals out of the backlog committee are actually not ready to open. And so the backlog committee have had to start actually disapproving people because they're not ready to open, and now we're working too fast, so there's a problem with that as well. The agency, as you know, have launched a new software in October of 23, and so in 1 year in 23, it's almost crazy to think that we had a change in leadership and also a change in software, and so that was a huge year of struggle for our agency. And the software, I hate to say, it's still a work in progress. We're still probably at least another 9 months from being able to actually say that this is a functioning item, and that, as you know, the front portal at that point may open, and that we will be starting to take actual applications and not just permits online, and we can process all the transactions like a normal business. It's sad to say that we're still taking checks. We're like back in the 1980s or something, but we're getting there, and our staff is working all really hard on trying to submit ideas of like how to improve the interface, search functions, and other software things, but it is very time consuming, and we're hoping that we will cross that bridge soon, where we're not spending a lot of executive time on building the software. This year, the governor has been very generous to us. I think that because of all of your feedback and a lot of sort of better industry commentary about our agency, we've been, also because we fill our FTEs, the executive and the Department of Budget have definitely given us a pat on the back and give us and awarded and suggested a historic budget increase for our agency, which is close to $5 million. $5 million is it's 28% of our agency's budget. So $5 million might not sound like a lot, but for us, it's everything. It's 30% of what we're operating on now, and so within that, we have a significant allocation to software and technology. We also have an allocation for 28 more positions. And why this is relevant to you is because 12 of those will go into licensing, which will continue to move the queues faster. 6 of them will go into wholesale and manufacturing. And that's probably an area of brain vacuum and enforcement that we haven't really been able to meet the mark. Over the years, we used to have a relatively big wholesale bureau, but it's just dwindled for political reasons. People leave and they weren't backfilled. And manufacturing, since the law really has been created and promoted, the agency have never actually invested resource into that area, and so we're really trying to change that. And so that's why the prior session was helpful, because Tracy is saying, why can't you come up with a description or a book or guidance on these issues, and we've never really had the capacity or got the staff time to do that. But now we're really starting to build a bureau, and so we would invite your ideas about what we can do to help you do your business easier and faster. And then of course also on the enforcement side is what's not working for you. What can we do to get rid of the bad players, investigate things for you, because the last piece of the legislative changes is, unless this agency can create the story on the context, like sometimes it's hard to push for policy changes. So we really encourage you to communicate with us as we continue to build this capacity, to try to figure out how we can help and how we can do better. So besides all that, I think last year we talked about this, is that renewals are now online. And so I hope you found that to be more helpful. Instead of waiting for the renewal notice, now you can go online and essentially create your own, and then you can send it in, and that's been working out pretty well. Again, temporary permits are now available, and since we've been here, besides last year's budget items, there were a list of like 9 items that were the governor's proposal into the budget. What we've also helped in achieve is that there were legislators that were interested in promoting direct shipping of distilled products and cider, and we as an agency also carried a program bill that was similar in concept, and so we were able to participate in educating of the legislators about that, and I would say that it was a successful outcome, and it's given us relationships and knowledge and experience that can help us continue to promote all the interests of all our licensees. I really see, all of you as our constituents, and so, we're looking for the next big thing to do, and so if you have an idea, we would love to hear from you, and we would certainly want to fix the archaic law in order for you to do business easily. We know that there is, as much as competition is difficult, New York State continues to attract new breweries. Every day there's a new application for a new brewery. There are, as I mentioned, like 600 plus now, 42 restaurant breweries, almost 300 micro and 300 farm. So, the pie is split very, very thin. There are tariffs issues, there's, decreased consumption issues, just, and the scarcity of the products that you need to buy in order, foreign products that you need to buy in order to actually make your beer. Everything is more costly, insurance costs gone up, workers' comp, like everything, it's complicated, and so we're aware of that, and we certainly want to be there to help you make things easier. And I'll stop there, and if you guys have comments, experiences that we should know about, bring it on.
First.
Yeah.
I'll go first. I did have a very good experience in applying for a one-day license.
Oh, good.
It was fast, it was easy, it was simple, done.
Thank you.
Was that for wine? One-day wine?
It was one day alcohol.
Because what I don't know is like, because we go one day, one day alcohol, those are just to sell New York State wine for a beer event, because for the non-beer drinkers. How can we get, maybe a permanent license or yearly license to add New York State wine sales to our microbrewers license?
If you want.
You could get you could add an OP type license to your establishment. We have what we call a restaurant wine license.
Okay.
All manufacturers can add one of those.
Okay.
You could add a full liquor too. If you're just looking for wine, you can do that. It's cheaper.
Okay.
But yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, the policy reason behind why your regular brewer, your microbrewer license doesn't allow you to sell the New York State labeled wines is it's to encourage you to get a farm brewer's license. Once you have the farm brewer's license, you don't need to also then get the other licenses to be able to sell a New York State labeled product. That's the policy reason behind it.
I'll speak up. I think a lot of people, one of our big pushes, and we've talked about this a little before, is trying to get more New York beer in New Yorkers' hands, right? Get it in front of them in places. There's obviously market things that are going to happen, right? We're never going to have every brewery here have the very popular large cans that you're seeing in bodegas and gas stations, things like that. It's just not a reality for most small producers. But New York venues, public venues, right? A lot of these places, brewers get squeezed out because of sponsorships and licensing agreements and contracts with vendors. And I know a lot of this for you guys is what's the law, and here's the law, and here's how we, your job is to enforce the policies that exist, right? For us, we're struggling with how do we help change some of those policies, and how do we help level the playing field between very small producers who want to be in some of these bigger venues, and then find out that it's, oh sure, well, we'd love to have your beer, and then you go down next time and say, well, really, this distributor really handles everything, so you have to go through that. Right? We're only going to use their brands for this festival downtown circus, right? So how do we as small breweries affect change in that way? I guess it's kind of a bigger question than just SLA policy.
Yeah, so we talked about this last year, and I appreciate that. Thanks for bringing that up. We have tried to, and we are continuing our efforts to try to help promote New York products. I mean, there's a fine line, because we don't want to, we're legally, it's unconstitutional for the agency to say you can only sell New York products. There's a lot of ongoing litigation about that, as you know. But there's actually no law requiring those other brands to get sold, right? There are contracts that are limiting it. So it's not a law, it's more a contract. And so we've been trying to break down some of those doors with parks. We are hosting the conference in Buffalo, for example, for the NCSLA, and we're trying to work with Taste New York to get tasting, and all of you are invited to participate in that if you are so inclined. We're doing what we can. you know, chamber actually listened to us, and now all chamber events, which means that all the governor's events are now serving New York products. So, you know, I go to cabinet retreats and I bring all New York products, and I'm like I'm doing a show and tell for all the cabinet members. I'm like, did you know that this can be sold here and this is not? And like they're all like rolling their eyes, but like, you know, it's you know, you have to sort of bring everything and show. And so we are doing the work. We have nothing to show for it yet, but I think people are listening. I think parts, they were like, well, there's just one concession that we're just about to open and maybe we can do something there. But you know, you start small. We are trying, so we hear you.
Thanks.
I don't want to put words in Hutch's mouth. I think he was also alluding to some of the enforcement end of things, you know, where we as small breweries are constantly going up against issues where we're told one thing that goes against the rules, and then we follow the proper steps to make sure that they do follow the rules, and then we still hit the same wall of, you know, this is the rule we're going up against. An instance would be going to a venue and a venue telling us, no, we only deal with one distributor, and you have to go to that distributor to get approval to be in our venue.
Right.
That's not against the rules. Or that is against the rules, but there's no enforcement. So, you know, coming from unless I'm misinterpreting something completely which is fair, I'm not a professional. You know, I think as a small brewery, I would love to see more enforcement out there. Or just some transparency about the enforcement that's going on. So when I do come across that, at least I can counter that with, you know, they're out there, and maybe this isn't something that should be told to me, and you know, it just opens up more opportunities for us. You know, I know you guys both not control, but you guys also both regulate distribution and wholesalers and all that. And I came from 20 years on the wholesale side, so I understand that side too. But there's definitely a bit of, we don't care what the rules say, we're doing it this way anyway. And even though we go and we move forward with pointing that out, nothing seems to happen.
Yeah, I mean, if something is blatantly breaking the rule, we invite the information, especially now that we are going to have more capacity to address on the enforcement side. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard because, yeah, so we don't get involved in like civil disputes, right? But if it's something that is like against the law, then we should know about it. And if it's repetitive patterns of violating the rights of small breweries, like that could fall under improper conduct as a business and should get looked at.
Obviously, when I first came into the industry 26 years ago, you know, there's always ebbs and flows of how often that gets cracked down on, and you guys can only focus on one thing at a time.
Yeah, so we haven't been, no, admittedly, yes, I agree with you,
I
that,
think we're at that upscale of where now it's kind of getting out of hand.
yes,
And
yes,
I'm just verbalizing it that it kind of.
100%.
And again, you can only stop so many things.
no, we would love the information, because we gotta know where to go, like, we can't just like, pick a name out of a hat, that's not what it is, like, we need actual facts and actual addresses and license numbers and people's names and
Recordings on.
recordings, like, you know, like, we take all evidence, like, really, no, I mean, it's,
Now I'm gonna have to hold myself on every time I have this conversation. Speak closer to my chest pocket.
Kind of piggyback off of what he said, it's more of like an optics thing to us, right? Because we feel like as a small producer, we have a lesser voice in the room, where it's like if we do file a complaint, because like I know of a situation where there are probably 3 smaller independent breweries that did file complaints to the Brewers Association or to the SLA, and nothing had come of it, whereas one large distributor or 2 large distributors might make a complaint, and all of a sudden it looks like you're trying to enforce what they're saying. So it almost looks like, you know, the smaller, because I've seen it happen in that sort of thing. It's more of an optical thing, because from your side it might not, you know.
so
But
I don't see that from my staff, so like I don't feel, I mean, you could be right, because sometimes we have bars where we start looking into something, again, like we don't get involved in like civil disputes, but I encourage you to send the information. And
Like, you're saying that like a pay-to-play sort of situation is considered a civil dispute, because isn't that?
no, that wouldn't be. No, that wouldn't be.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be.
Because that's the sort of situation that's talking about. You know, because it's like if we did have a civil dispute, you know, I mean, obviously you have to go to it.
Yeah, but here we hear rumors like, well, someone is getting like Super Bowl tickets. Like, I mean, like that's not enough information for me. You know what I mean? Like, I need like details when, who, what, when for what, right? Like, what was the exchange? You know, so it just you have access to us. You can ask Shannon for a meeting, like, and we will meet with you. You know, so if you want to stay anonymous, you can come to the meeting and we'll keep it anonymous. Like, it doesn't need to be this brewer said this, you know, like it's not.
Maybe we need to do a better job amongst ourselves, making sure that the smaller breweries are heard. That's really what it kind of comes down to is
Yeah.
we are minimized because
And-
when they're
yeah.
small, their voice is tiny versus the louder, bigger.
Well, and I think, well, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't wanna put words in your mouth, Chair, but I think part of it is you have to have the right amount of evidence that goes along with it, and even if you are small, you can gather that evidence. It's just that it's likely that a large wholesaler who does report something likely had a lawyer put it together, and they likely had a ton of time to put that portfolio together and then send in a nice briefing over to the SLA. But that doesn't mean that you have to do all of those things. They just need, the SLA needs specifics. You're an enforcement agency. You're not out there investigating things proactive, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. We're completely complaint driven, and keep in mind what we're looking for in these types of cases, guys, is we need to see one, the change in purchasing habits from the retailer. All right, so you used to sell there, you don't sell there anymore. All right, that combined with whatever, a brand new ceramic tap system happens to show up at a retail premises at the same time, you're bounced out. Now I have a prima facie case. Now I have a case that if I bring charges and it goes all the way through, the members agree that we have a case, it's probably going to stand up in court on Article 78. Okay, that's the kind of info we need, guys. All right. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, we want to level the playing field too. So we're on the same team here, but you have to help us with the information, right? So, you know, like I'm always beating their doors and I'm like, what do we got? What do we got? You know, but it's like, oh, good, not, you know. It's just what we have right now is, you know, it's not strong enough, right? So, but you know, every time we come, this comes up. So there's got to be something there.
I feel like it could be on us also, to like, because I feel like there's so many of us with such a small, and we have the Brewers Association to help us out with a lot of these aspects. But like, we don't always, like you mentioned, we don't know the evidence that you need. Because that's the other
Yeah,
part.
but small is not a reason. I'll give you my card, and then you can take their names. And like, we're like so accessible, really. Like, you think that we're like this big? We're not. Like, we're just people sitting behind our email boxes, like just like you. Like we're reachable. Like, you know. So like.
Don't be sure to say, I'm not coming at you guys. Why aren't you doing anything about it?
No. We want to do something too. So like, I want the
Right, let us know
exchange.
what we need,
Yeah.
because, you know, one of the incidents we're talking about, we brought up yesterday at our association meeting, and then like after that, other breweries came up with, I have the same problem with the same account, and
Yeah.
it's a statement, so I don't want you to think that we're complaining about a small little guy just trying to make money in it.
No, but they shouldn't be.
And it's one of those things, and I want to find the best way where we can take our small voices, get as big as we can for you, to all you folks,
Yeah.
with what you need to do.
Yeah, I mean, if I can have like, yeah.
With everything you need
Yeah,
to
yeah.
follow up on our behalf.
Yeah.
I appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also think that you may feel like, you're talking about optics, you feel like you have a small voice because you hear, you know, something coming from the larger players. You have a very large voice with this audience, particularly this chair. I mean, really, the board and the agency now is incredibly interested in this group of people. So
No, I know.
you might not see that, but it's true.
The last few years have been incredible. You know, the young lady there just said, you know, how quickly she got a license. I needed a 1-day extension permit, and the town didn't believe how quickly you guys turned that. I literally, like, I went to the town with it and like, no, this, yeah, this is how quickly they turned it around.
Hey,
7,000 people.
tell the governor that later.
Put her in the room, I definitely will.
She will be here later, so.
I know, speaking on behalf of our permits department, they really, really are dealing with quite, you wouldn't believe the volume of permits they get on a daily basis, and they have literally like 4 people that do them. So, for you guys to get them that quickly, that speaks volumes for what we're having to go through.
The town literally thought I just like pencil goods. We'll check on
And not to be not crazy again too, but in my role, for the past 5 years, I've had to apply for 1-day permits at least twice a year. And in the last couple of years, under your new guidance and leadership, the turnaround is exceptional. And we had an unusual situation this year where we were having our winter festival. They didn't bother to tell us they applied for a liquor license. And after I'd already applied for our 1-day permit, they're like, oh, hey, by the way, we just got approved. I'm like, would it be good to know, number one, you applied for this, because I needed to know that before applying. And reaching out to David, who's our zone 1 contact, immediately. I said, reached out to him. He responded within minutes as to, telling me exactly what was the best course of action to make it just, pretend it didn't happen so that there is no issue, so no red flags are raised, because this is not a situation. No one's doing anything wrong. It was then you didn't bother to tell us, so we didn't need to apply.
Yeah, too many liquor licenses is good.
Too few, not good.
That's the go to the.
The refund will take a while, but
Never had too many liquor licenses.
Thank you. I guess in a long-winded way.
Yeah, no, thank you.
I just want to ask a quick question about farm licensing. A lot of the farm licenses, I feel like they've done a lot of good things, but on the farm winery license, do you think there's any, I think right now the farm winery license has to be produced on the farm where the grapes are grown. Might there be any changes to that in the future, or is that something that's pretty?
It's a law change. So this is back to, I think, 76 when they created that, and we did the rest. I think 2007 was the farm distillery. That did not include it, and the rest of them following that, the 13 brewers, and then, what else have we done? Meaderies, I don't know if that's hard cider, but you're absolutely right, but the statute's pretty clear on that. So, push for a change, if that's what you're interested in.
Yeah, you could argue climate change.
No. You don't need to. We covered a lot of the things, but
I had a comment, just because I'm an attorney and I see a different side than they see. A lot of times I hear people calling and complaining that there's no enforcement, and I don't think that's always true. Because I deal with disciplinary, so I know there's enforcement, but you don't know about it because they don't report to you that they did something, and it's not like the person that got caught is gonna report it. They pay a fine, and they may continue to still be a bad actor and do it. But, just to say that in my experience, I hear all the time that there is no enforcement, and I'm not saying there's not on the issue that you're talking about, but I hear it all the time, especially with retailers, and I'm sure that it's not true because I'm the one handling the disciplinary in my office. But I can't say that, to somebody, so I will say sometimes there's more enforcement than you think, you just don't know about it.
Can I ask a silly question? I know on the SLA website, they've got like that enforcement blotter that shows like recent enforcements. Does that cover all enforcements?
You mean like I think it's the sales to minors that you're talking about. We kind of publicize those.
Is there something like that for?
We used to do it after every board meeting, and it's actually a tech issue, but we used to at least list the, synopsis of it, and you can always get more information through FOIL. We get thousands of FOIL requests, but getting that out there is a great idea, though. If we're doing this stuff, we should let the public know.
It's not that I don't think that you're not doing it. It's just when you see it, it carries a heavier weight for the smaller guy.
Yeah, definitely.
And the board meetings are public, so you can always also, that takes a little, more time kind of going through, but you see what happens at those.
Yeah, I mean, this is an organization, there are other organizations that regularly watch full board and someone is summarizing it and they see how many new licenses are going out and what kind of, charges were filed and what cases came up and who was a defendant and whatnot. So it's all public information. We don't necessarily summarize it in a concise way. But we knew we really do need the big cases because ultimately it needs to hit the press and then people will find out, right? And the industry certainly talks as well, if, and I think this lack of enforcement, in certain tiers is a common theme that we hear from, even, you would be surprised, even the big players will tell us you need more enforcement because everyone always sees someone else doing something illegal.
If there's no other questions, then we want to thank the SLA team.